Welcome to the latest episode of Review, Reroll, and Refill, a podcast about brewing and nerd culture. I'm here with my co-host.
My name is John Langang, and I am the head brewer at 9 Mile Brewing here in Bloomington, Minnesota.
And I'm Will Matthews, one of the co-founders of Beerploma, LLC out of Richfield, Minnesota. So we are starting up a new podcast series. This is our inaugural episode here. And John, how did this one come to be?
We've known each other for a while now. You're here often. Having a pub ale on tap was a shot in the dark, throwing a dart at a wall kind of thing. When we open, I like bitters, things of that nature. Really like dark miles. I've made a couple in the past, brewing career before I got here. Really glommed onto them, and then the few times a year the breweries around here do them, I will go seek them out. It's kind of one of the few things I actually go seek out anymore. So I'm like, you know what? We're just going to do it. We're going to try to make it a core beer here. And since, we opened a little over 4 years now, it has been enough of a drive, and there's a little bit of a following with it, especially with some city employees here in Bloomington, that I have to keep making it at a nice steady clip. Thank you for part of that as well. You're kind of one of the early adopters of spreading the good word of the pub ale. Thank you many times before.
Thank you very much. But no, thank you for all the hospitality and for inviting me into your guys' place. We're actually shooting down at 9 Mile today. We're in their tap room just before it opens up here. By the way, for future episodes, if anybody is following us on TikTok under Beerploma, we will be live streaming these shoots. So you guys can come in and ask questions of the brewer, and you'll get your name called out. So this isn't just going to be a brewing podcast, because there's a lot of brewing podcasts out there. We're also very big nerds. And we found that out through just hanging out with each other.
Osmosis.
Through osmosis. In fact, now you're part of my regular game group.
I really haven't done anything that kind of setup ever. I've been playing Magic the Gathering off and on for 30 years now. And then I've always loved board games and anything in that vein, but I've never really been asked to be a part of a tabletop gaming scenario that is repetitive, that has, a theme to it, that is ongoing, that has a story, a plot. Things get decided on the fly. I really like it.
So you've never done tabletop role-playing before?
Not to this degree, no. I haven't been in a D&D campaign. It's always been like...
You've never done D&D?
No.
Wow.
I've always been like, I'm going to go find some people that do this. Magic consumed my life for a while.
As a Magic player, it still consumes my life, even though I haven't really played in 10 years. Yeah. But I'm still an avid collector. I'm still a member of the community. I'm hosting events all over the Twin Cities right now through our DB Mid-Coast Gaming. So quick shout out to Mid-Coast Gaming there. But yeah, I mean, even though I haven't played in 10 years, it's still an all-consuming passion of mine.
And there's, I guess to just briefly elaborate on that, there's so many ways you can, quote unquote, do Magic the Gathering. You can play it, you can collect, you can
draft, and there's so many different ways. There's something for everybody. Yes. I mean, I know that everybody right now, the big popular thing is that C word. And no, I'm not saying that C word. I'm talking about the other C word, Commander, but which neither one of us play.
No, not really. So I bought a pre-con deck just to dip the toes in. I got my wife into playing this past year. She loves it too, so it's nice to have someone at home to just do 1v1 standard 60 card format. We do play Legacy Vintage, kind of anything goes.
But kitchen table Vintage. When you say that you guys are playing Legacy Vintage, you're not seeing Moxes and Black Lotuses start to drop.
No, we're not pulling out any Power 9s or doing anything like that. It's been fun. She really enjoys it. Now she's going to go seek out, other groups to play with.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Good for you.
Came across, I don't remember what the organization's called, but she came across just a random business card for them, and I can't remember where she went. It was for her day job. She's like, I think I'm going to email this group and see if they want anyone else to join. I'm like, you should. That's amazing. Like, you playing with me at home is very fun, but it's nice to have other outlets for that too, other perspectives and other people to have fun with.
So I'm just going to ask a random question here about Magic. Sure. So what would you say is probably your favorite card right now?
Favorite card right now?
Well, I mean, just like what's a card? Like when I say, hey, what's your favorite card? Like what comes to your mind immediately?
Really none right now, because we've been really into Lorwyn Eclipsed. That's kind of the first set that her and I, went in a booster box and did our own little ripping packs at home. And
that was a fun set to crack. That was a super fun set to crack.
The amount of booster packs we've gotten, we should have just bought another damn one.
I've got a couple more if you need some.
Don't tempt me. But I can't see any one card, but the Kithkin within Lorwyn. I built a whole deck around that. And I kind of fussed with that too back when Lorwyn, that whole block came out years and years ago. But this kind of up the ante with Kithkin as a deck builder.
A theme, yeah.
Yeah, and it's fun and it's brutal. My wife's just like, do you really have to play with that right now? Kind of giving me a look. I'm like, okay. I'd say probably anything in the Kithkin theme right now. Maybe not just one card, but it's the synergy with the deck is really fun.
See, now there's always going to be like a couple of legacy cards with me. I still am very heavily involved in the scouting movement, and there used to be like an internal tournament structure there. And so I was always known for playing a deck called Cerebral, which was a red-white control deck that would dominate the field by using red burn spells to like basically clear the field. And then there would be like 2 Serra Angels, and later on there was a Masta Cerebral, which also ran a couple Masticores in there too. When the Masticore or the Serra Angel would hit the field, it would absolutely just dominate because all the other creatures were all burned away.
Yeah.
But the one card that I will always say is going to be my signature card is going to be Swords to Plowshares. I was the first in my play group to figure out how powerful that card was, because everybody was like, yeah, but you're giving your opponent's life. And I was like, yeah, but you just completely got rid of that creature, and there is no graveyard recursion getting that back.
Yeah.
And so I love Swords to Plowshares. And in fact, to this day, I kind of have like a little sub collection of Swords to Plowshares, of like very fancy Swords to Plowshares.
I mean, yeah, if you're dominating the board state anyway.
Yeah.
That's
It was just more
resource.
It was more removal for me anyway. And once I got the board locked down with all those removal spells, it was just game over.
You did briefly mention the last time I dropped by your place just to sort cards and BS. Play with those Jumpstart packs.
Oh yeah, they were the Avatar Jumpstart. Now, first off, so Jumpstart started out really good. When it was a standalone product, it was really good. So there was Jumpstart and Jumpstart 22, but then they started doing all these other Jumpstarts in the background that just didn't hit the same. But then they came out with Jumpstart Avatar, and I was watching the professor on YouTube, and he was like giving a really strong accolade. So I bought a couple packs, and you came over that one day, and that was probably the first time I actually like shuffled up a deck of cards, not with my kids.
Yeah.
And played. So I do play a couple casual games with my kids, but I'm quarterbacking so much of those games that it's not the same feel that I get when I'm playing another adult.
You had mentioned that particular deck you were just describing there. Yeah,
oh, but I don't know how that deck would stand up with today's cards, because like we didn't have cards like Ragavan, which was like, what is that, a 2/1 drop for 1 red mana with all sorts of abilities coming on it and stuff.
I mean, yeah, cards nowadays, it's trying to keep up with the new mechanics.
Yeah.
With me taking a break 2 or 3 different times already for years at a time and like diving back in, I'm like, okay, what are the mechanics now? It's like, and how many new ones are there? And how long is it going to take to get used to incorporating this into the knowledge bank? Or yada yada. Magic the Gathering. It's pretty easy to go down a wormhole.
Oh, well, I mean, again, we're here to talk about nerd culture, so this is the place to brain dump about that kind of stuff.
But going back to the tabletop gaming group, again, thank you for inviting me to that, because it's been a lot of fun, and it's based around Star Trek, which is also a very big passion of mine too. So combining those two things into one was definitely, yes, I'm in.
How do you feel about the Modiphius set? Because with no tabletop experience, that's kind of most people start out with Dungeons and Dragons, and you jumped right into Modiphius 2D20, which is personally, it's my favorite way to play tabletop role-playing games. I think Modiphius has done it right. They have done it right with Achtung Cthulhu, they've done it right with Fallout, and they've done it right with Star Trek. I think just across the board, Modiphius is probably my favorite. And they just came out with a Dune one. And
I know there's probably, what are we doing next after Star Trek?
We're probably going back to Fallout for a little while.
After that, can we do Dune? That is.
You might have to run that one though. I don't know who's got source books in our group for that.
Okay. Because Dune was one of my favorite books. I know it's a lot of people's, and that might be passe to say. Actually, people have pretty strong opinions on Dune one way or the other. But
I love Dune from a world building perspective. Yes. I think Dune did a wonderful job building the world. It's a little chewing the scenery. Like the dialogue is long. The dialogue sometimes gets weighted and clunky, especially in the two sets of movies, like the ones with Patrick Stewart in the old days and then the new ones.
David Lynch. Yeah.
I hear the book is a lot better.
I mean, yeah, it's been hard to adapt the book in any format. You know, the ones that have come out the last few years have been good. But yeah, you can't capture really with anything the magic of the book into a movie setting. But they're doing their damnedest. And it's pretty close, even with them taking some liberties here and there. But yeah, I've read Dune, all the the original 6 with that included, all the prequels, the intricals, the pre-prequels, the sequels, all like I think they're up. I lost count 24, 25, something like that now. I think I'm up to the current date on that. That's neither here nor there. If Dune in any for like a tabletop version of that would be really fun.
Would you be interested in running that? Being the fact that you are you would be like Gary. Our normal game master is Gary, and that guy has got his fingers in just about every that is out there. He knows he is the best tabletop role player I've ever met. He knows every sci-fi genre, every comic book genre, every high fantasy genre. He has just got his fingers everywhere. I think the only one he doesn't cover is anime. And so he might have a lot of Dune knowledge, but would you be willing to run a Dune one just with the knowledge that you have on that world? See, like I'm the perfect one for Fallout because like Fallout is one of my obsessions, but I don't know who we have in the group that would have the lore to run a Dune one. It's not me.
I would say tentatively yes, after, finishing this and then getting used to another campaign, as it were.
Sure.
So I can because I'm comfortable with being there. It's a lot of fun. It's remembering all the mechanics with the dice roll. Like I'm getting there, I'm asking less questions now, and I'm able to kind of like adapt and remember things, especially from like my character sheet and bio and my special talents and focuses and all that are like, I'm getting there. I think after doing another one like the Fallout one after this,
you might be ready to go.
Maybe we'll see.
Okay,
I'm tentatively yes. I'd be
cool. That'd be awesome. And like it really, who really surprises me in our group is Alec when he runs. When he is the game master for a run. Well, no, I know you know him as a player, and he is like that. Like so, every play group has that chaotic player. They have that player that really throw things for a loop and can sometimes complicate things in the best ways possible. And that's the way I'll describe Alec. That is who he is as a player. But he actually does a phenomenal job as a game master. He ran a couple campaigns the first time we went through the Star Wars stuff, and he just did a bang-up job with some of his storylines.
That doesn't surprise me. It's been fun sitting to his direct right since like the first time, I sat down with you guys to just see that type of gameplay, versus everyone else. And he's been helping those first couple times. He helped me out a lot with, all of you did.
Yeah.
But having the person right next to me also be hands-on helping me through stuff, and then watching him play like he does, I'm like, okay.
And there has been he has played basically that same role like ever since I've known him. I remember when I first started, we were playing a different system, and I can't remember what the name of that system is, but they do the primary doctor role-playing game, and I just remember most of the nights I was just leaving with my head in my hands, just like, why are we doing this? but you have now fully experienced it. Let's switch gears here a little bit and let's talk about tabletop gaming as a whole, so like board games and stuff like that. So that's a big passion of mine.
Yes.
But I'm always and that's something that we're going to sneak a lot here into this podcast series going forward. Is I'm probably going to bring a little board game to play. I'm really big into travel board games right now because they're great for when I'm like brewery hopping. They're great for when I'm just on my random road trips. I could stick them easily in my bag. Like when I went to Spain back in January for a work trip, I went with like 3 or 4 board games in my bag, ready to pull out and just sit down and just get to know my new coworkers by playing board games. Because I think that's a great way to like judge somebody's intelligence, judge somebody's decision making. And maybe judging is kind of a strong word, but get a feel for like who I'm dealing with here. And so like I'll be bringing some board games in. Do you have any favorite board games that you can think of, or any fun ones that you have tried within the last couple months?
With busy work, busy home life, we have a decent collection of board games. I honestly couldn't tell you what they were off the top of my head because we haven't pulled them out in a while. One game that when my wife and I got together, it's 10 years ago now, Summoner Wars was a fun one to play with her. She introduced me with that. I'm like, yeah, this is really fun. It's a commitment, but not a huge one as far as time goes. It's been that long.
What's the name of that one?
Summoner Wars.
I've heard of it, but I don't think I've ever played that one.
It's almost like a version of Stratego, however you pronounce that.
Yeah.
From forever ago, but a little more involved, but kind of the same board state setup. And then I have a Star Trek Catan board that we haven't even opened. And I know so many people that play Catan, and I've been invited so many times in the past, but something would always come up, or be like, oh, I'll join here. I just haven't. So that thing's just sitting still in the shrink wrap. So I'll get to that some
if
point.
you only have one board game still in the shrink wrap, those are rookie numbers, man. I got at least 20.
And then
I'm a sucker for kickstarting a new board game. Help is one that maybe that's one that we'll start out with, because I'm really interested in it, because it's a 2-player game, but it's asymmetric play. So like someone takes on the role of a shark and they're trying to eat the octopus. And the octopus is just trying to build its garden and just try to live its best life.
Okay.
But one is playing a card game and the other one is playing a dice game.
Oh.
And I've heard so I have the Kickstarter version of this one. So I've got the little mini expansion pack that came with it. And I'm really excited to try that one. So maybe that's one of the games that we'll start out with.
I'm in.
So now there's one game I'm kind of curious to hear your thoughts on. It's one game that we played together.
Magical Athletes.
Magical Athletes, yes. What did you think of that one?
My wife got on the next pre-order whenever we're doing that again. Like, basically, I told her about it, and then when we came over for Nova's birthday party and played with you.
For the record, Nova is my now 7-year-old daughter.
I have 2 daughters, and my youngest, Isla, just turned 6 a couple days ago on St. Patrick's Day, so brought her over for Nova's party. And while we were there, we played this game we're talking about, Magical Athletes. And Will and I had played that night that I came over
to play Magic. Yeah. We played the 2-player version, which isn't nearly as fun as when you have multiple people, when you have 3 or more.
Right. When you brought up, hey, do you want to play this? And I told my wife, I'm like, hey, Kaylee, come over here. This is the game I was talking about. You should play. And immediately after that, she just got on her phone. She was like, I already pre-ordered it. It was a bunch of fun. I'm like, yeah. So
for those who don't know, Magical Athletes was probably one of the games of 2025. Really hard to get. Now, this game came from the 80s, but it only had 8 unique characters in it. And then the game just kind of disappeared. And then they brought it back. They dusted it off. They had Richard Garfield, the guy who made King of Tokyo, Magic the Gathering, and all the games. And they had him redo it. Now there's like 30 characters to the game now. And each of these characters have a unique ability. But other than that, the basic premise is you roll the dice and you move your character. And that's it. But then each of these characters have these special abilities that modify the board. And the game gets so chaotic. It is like a perfect cross between a board game and a party game.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So like you have like one character who doesn't have to roll the dice. They just get to move 5 for their main move. You have other characters that trip people up, make them lose their turn whenever they pass them. You have another character who nobody else can be sitting on the same square as that person. And just all across the board. And this game is like ripe for expansions too. So I'm hoping that there's some expansions that come out for this one later, because it's just a brilliantly simple game that can be played by all ages. And I love games like that.
And it's, and I mean this in a good way, it's loud and colorful. The art on it, the colors, it's telling you it's there, and please play with me. And it's really fun. I had fun with our 1v1 that one night, and I had a blast, with multiple people that we had. It was like 5 or 6 people.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. I'm excited when that shows up on my doorstep eventually.
How backlogged was it?
I don't remember where she went through to order it. I don't think it was Amazon, but that'd be interesting. I can have that answer for you next time. Or like what the wait list, what that looks like. I hope it's sooner than later. Not that I'm going to forget that maybe it would be fun to forget that it's coming in. I'll be like, oh yeah, we ordered it.
Hey, Merry Christmas.
Hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully it's not Christmas time. But because there are a couple friends that we would very easily get into.
Yeah.
Going back to when you were asking, what have been my favorites or things that I've played recently. Again, this hasn't been recently, but we have a version of the Pandemic series that is centered around Eldritch Horrors and Cthulhu.
Oh, fun!
So that one was really fun to play when we got it. I think that was seriously maybe a year out from pre-COVID. So playing a pandemic themed game and then an actual global pandemic slamming down when we were playing, that was very interesting.
Now, I can't remember the name off the top of my head of the person who developed Pandemic, but prior to that person had developed a game that's somewhat like Pandemic, where it is very much a cooperative game, but meanwhile the environment is really fighting against you, and it's called Forgotten Island. And I don't know if you've played that one, but that's a really good way to get like, it's a very good one for kids, but it's also strategic enough and fun enough to play as an adult as well. And I really enjoy the Forgotten Island version of it. And it's basically almost exactly the same mechanics as Pandemic. It's just, it's centered around the idea of this island is sinking and you have to get all these rare artifacts off the island before it fully sinks and takes you with it. So that's always a fun one to go to too. So I'm going to shift gears again here, but hey, this is a brewery facing podcast, and you are the head brewer of my favorite brewery in Minnesota right now. And actually not just Minnesota, probably all of US. So we should probably talk a little bit about some of the beers that you guys have here. I am sitting here in front of this beautiful plate of beers. And for those of you guys who want to see more of the beers that I'm drinking, please head on over to Beerploma's Instagram. Before we jump into the beers here, though, I do want to call out that 9 Mile has trivia every Wednesday, and they have bingo every Thursday down at their tap room. So head on over to 9 Mile on those days, and don't forget to visit 9mile.com for more information on these events. And they've got some really cool events coming up. And the one I want to focus on is in April. They have 2 dates, April 3rd and April 18th. You guys have a mushroom class hosted by the Gentleman Forager. Now, I've heard of the Gentleman Forager, but I'm not really quite too sure about his program.
Yeah, so we've had him in his career previously. I've never seen someone more enthusiastic about mushrooms in my life. And I'm a big fan of mushrooms. Putting mushrooms really on anything food-wise, texturally, flavor, and there's so many of them too. You know, some people, they're all the same. Palate discerning aside, and I know mushrooms are kind of divisive too. People either love them or really love them or really hate them. But the two, maybe 3 events that they've done here so far, bringing in either mushrooms as is or pairing cuisine with them, just been bonkers delicious. You know, some of these things you wouldn't even guess there were mushrooms in there. Some things you could obviously tell these are mushrooms and they're prepared in a way to where you want them to stand out, and some were melded in so well that they become just a flavor or texture component, and if you didn't know they were in there, you wouldn't know they were in there. So it was, on either side it was really cool, comparing and contrasting. Yes, they're in here, or they're kind of hidden and you wouldn't know otherwise. So the versatility of mushrooms too, and the way that they do it is from A to Z.
That's awesome. So again, those dates are April 3rd and April 18th. Let's go down to April 10th. You guys have a sourdough class happening. And on April 11th, you have a Suck It Up Buttercup Succulents Pop-Up. And also just a ton of other events such as charitable bingo, monthly book exchange. Somewhere on the calendar, we haven't booked it yet, but you'll be working with Mid-Coast Gaming on an open board game night. So that is also coming up as well. We just haven't put a date on that. So, but if you want to know more about that, make sure that you are reaching out to 9 Mile's social media. You can find them on Instagram, Facebook, and also visit their website. They have a great event space, which they keep very well up to date at 9mile.com. Or you can also visit for Mid-Coast Gaming and Beerploma events that are hosted here at 9 Mile. Head on over to our social media under Beerploma or Mid-Coast Gaming. Any events that you wanted to call out?
Thank you for the cheat sheet. The sourdough class we've had a couple times now, and they've been, from my perspective, pretty successful. My wife ended up taking one of those. I mean, we were, at least for my part, when, the height of the pandemic and lockdown was happening, I got into sourdough like a lot of people did, and I did enjoy it. And I didn't purposely let it lay fallow, but I got busy with other things, and I didn't appropriately feed my starter, and it ended up dying. So,
as a head brewer of a really awesome brewery, that's kind of disappointing to hear you say that.
Right. Man, this is like my bread and butter, pun intended.
Intend your puns, coward.
It was fun. So, when she was like, I think I'm going to sign up, I was like, you should. And it's her leading the charge at home, fluxing with sourdough again. It's been great. Really, any class that's been put on here has been, from what I've heard, really well received. The book exchanges we do pretty often too, and that's also, the succulents pop-up, I think, has been quite a few times now. We try to bring in a wide swath of things in our events.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Again, everything, not to beat a dead horse, but from A to Z, there's just an easy way to.
All right, but I see a bunch of delicious beer sitting in front of me, and I'm very thirsty right now. So why don't you tell us what we're drinking?
So I have just a couple 2 tree here. 2 of them we've had out for a bit yet. One of them is a West Coast Pilsner, so I'll explain what that is. If anyone doesn't know what that is, it's kind of a new style, and I do say that in quotes because there are a lot of things nowadays in the past 5, maybe even 10 years where people are taking, liberties, and I mean that in a good way, with either kind of smashing styles together or kind of coming up with their own.
Now, with a West Coast Pilsner, how does that relate to the cold IPAs?
Similar yet different. So that would kind of be in recipe building and kind of fermentation profile, how you would go about it.
What would be the major differences?
So in a cold IPA, again, there's many ways to go about that too. In the main vein for that, you would be taking a very simple grain build, usually something Pilsner or Pilsner derivative. There is a kind of malt that's just called Pilsner malt. It's very lightly kilned. It's probably one of the blankest canvases to layer things upon if you want.
Which also means room for errors to crop up too, though.
Correct. So if you want something to shine in a very, very simple format, a Pilsner malt is kind of your way to go as a base malt. But without getting too jargon-laden into that, a West Coast Pils different from a cold IPA, like a cold IPA you would have. So Pilsner malt, maybe a little sprinkling of specialty malts for body, and then either corn or rice to even lighten the body. And then it's also a really good canvas to layer hops upon because you don't have, and you use a lager yeast. So it's kind of a misnomer in that way, but it's on purpose. Lager yeasts tend to, majority of them give off less esters or fruity notes that a lot of ale yeasts do. So you're letting the hops, not that hops can't shine in a traditional IPA with traditional ale yeast. They absolutely can and they're delicious, but utilizing lager yeast lets a little more of the nuances of whatever hops you choose to pop even more. Because it's just a very simple canvas. They do pop, they do shine. Where a West Coast Pilsner differs is, and cold IPAs have kind of your traditional ABVs too. Anywhere between, I've seen some as low as 6, I've seen some as high as 8, but in the grand scheme of the ones I've had, anywhere between 6. Whereas a West Coast Pilsner, you're wanting to keep them lower, more sessionable. I've had some personally that have been anywhere between 4.5 and about 5.2. The ones that I make, and this is the one we have in front of us, is the third version of this. I'm forgetting off the top of my head. I think this one is 5, right on 5 ABV. So you want them in a more sessionable format. You still add hops, to let them pop, let them shine, but maybe less volume of them or quantity of them, pounds of them, I guess you could say, than you would in a cold IPA. They're still there. They still shine, but appropriate for the ABV, the alcohol content. And they do finish, cold IPAs can finish dry, but these, in my experience, tasting them, also finish a bit drier as well. So you have the components of a Pilsner. It's very simple. It's very, again, I'm going to use the word canvas a lot. It's a good way to describe, especially malt-derived things like a canvas, to layer hops upon and to keep the ABV low, keep it sessionable, keep people coming back for more and having just enough of a moderate dryness component to keep you thirsty and wanting to have more too. It's called Liminal Threshold.
So when I drink this, if you wouldn't have told me that it was a West Coast Pilsner, I immediately think this is some sort of IPA. So I'm definitely getting that cascadiness type hops out of it, that grapefruity, citrusy notes out of it, a little bit of pine tree in there.
Yep.
And then there's a nice smooth finish to it. But again, I can taste that clean palate that you're talking about that you get from those malts and stuff. So am I picking it up on this right here? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I've had a few beers.
Yes. If I were to build a sensory panel here that involved someone doesn't work here, some places do that. Super tasters, regulars, someone that's not biased as an employee here, could be a fan, like you are, but someone that doesn't work here.
But as a fan, then we're biased.
I suppose there's that too. But it's nice to have other perspectives on sensory.
Well, and I've called you out on a couple things before. I'm not gonna go too deep into those.
Oh, you
but
can.
But
it's nice because you're here often enough, especially if they're ones that are core beers or repeats, and you've had them enough.
Pub ale.
Yes, it's nice to hear things from people that or you're on a day-to-day basis.
Well, and I'm going to be honest with you too, because my goal is to like help 9 Mile in every way I can. And if I'm just sugarcoating a flaw, I'm not doing you any favors.
I am not the kind of brewer that bristles or bridles at technical feedback, because if someone is tasting something, I'm going to go, oh shit, I'm going to go back and I'm going to evaluate that myself too. And that doesn't mean that I'm going to get what you get. People's sensory, their palates.
There's always a little subjectiveness to it.
Yeah, because some people are more sensitive to diacetyl, which is, an off flavor. It's something all beers give off. They naturally just reabsorb back into it if you give them enough time to do so. But that's like your movie theater, like butter on buttered popcorn and a slick mouthfeel. That's something that happens. Some people are super tasters for it. Some people don't get it at all. That's why having a sensory panel of different perspectives is definitely nice and needed.
I should also note that as I'm drinking this beer more, it's got a very dry finish to it, but even that, it still has a very light mouthfeel. And also just a beautiful Brussels lace being left on that glass.
Thank you.
Wonderful Brussels lace on that. So that is a very well constructed beer.
And with this, I tried to keep to, a quote unquote classic West Coast profile, if you will, of citrus, floral, pine, with hopefully not having one dominate over the other.
It's all very well blended. You almost have to taste them from start to finish. The first moment that it hits your tongue is different from the last moment before you swallow. Right. And this beer is very well blended and very comforting in the fact that from start to finish, it's basically the same profile. It just carries very well from start to finish in the flavor.
Yeah. And I mean, depending on how the size of the pour you get, how long you take between sips, gulps, whatever you choose, a format of drinking the liquid, temperature variations are going to bring some things out and that you might not have gotten before, and some things might take a back seat. Some people like to do that too. I like to intentionally do that with some things. I'm like, all right, I'm going to have this. I'm going to take my time with it. And like, maybe you're going to get something different beginning, middle, and end, but subtly some nuances. Like, oh, I get a little more of X and a little less of Y. Or like, ooh, Z popped out more than X does.
So what popped out for you in this beer? Like when you were making it, what popped out from you that you weren't necessarily expecting?
Again, trying to balance, for me, the three components I was trying to balance for the hop profile: floral, citrus, and pine. And the floral jumped out to me more than the other two right away.
Yeah.
And, when this went on tap right away too, the floral notes for me were not overtaking the other two, but it was a little more prominent. Now that it's been on tap for 4 weeks, 4.5, maybe something, that the floral note is dropping back into the beer, and a little more of that citrus and pine is kind of popping out. Yeah. Which does happen too with hop profiles, depending on how simple or complex you get it. If you're adding 8 different hops into your 8 different ways, you're going to get a whole slew of things. And again, depending on your individual palate, some things jump up more, others hops are fun in that regard, whether that's intentional or not. As the brewer, like, I'm going to put this in here this many different ways to hopefully have people pick out X, Y, or Z.
Yeah, for sure. All right, what's this reddish looking one? Because that looks up by Ellie.
The reddish looking one is our 4th anniversary beer. It is a red rye lager. Kind of hard to see the red on here because sunlight is back. It's red.
Okay, so what's the name of this one?
It's called Call the Banners, which is kind of a nod to Game of Thrones or medieval calling your banners. As if you're a lord or a high lord and you have vassals underneath you and you're going to war, there's some sort of conflict going on, you want to call your banners, your bannermen, your banner people to come help you. So this one was specifically from an episode in season 1 of Game of Thrones where Upstart calls his banners to war.
Do I lose a point of nerd cred for never having watched an episode of Game of Thrones or House of Dragons?
No, because you have so many nerd creds above me in other realms that I wouldn't dare. But yeah, this one is a red rye lager. And
how long has this one been out?
Since our 4th year anniversary, so mid-February.
Mid-February, yeah, because normally when I hear a rye beer, I expect like a real heavy peppery taste. And this one is way more mellow.
Yeah, the goal in here was, yes, to have rye part of the name or like the style, but to not have it be so blown out that you're going to taste rye over everything else, because rye can be kind of a divisive.
Yeah.
usage of a malt or an adjunct, because it can, if you do it in enough of a quantity, it can come off as overly dry, come off as earthy, peppery,
very peppery,
and it can blow out all of your other malts if you don't use it in a percentage that makes sense. I mean, there are beers you want to do that too, like a German Rogan beer. Some of them are almost 50% of your grain bill. You want that to stand out, but you also, the other 50%, build something to where that stands up to it too, where this is more a light to medium hand at the rye.
Yeah.
With everything else, like I want it to be there. I want it to shine through a bit, but not take over everything.
Yeah, I'm catching a more medium mouthfeel to this one, a little bit chewier than the last beer. Definitely getting a little bit of roasty notes to it, but then it does have a light pepperiness in its finish. Not really in your face peppery like a lot of rye beers can be, but then I'm not sure what the word is that I'm looking for it. But like I said, it's like a roasty with like a slight pepperiness to it. Very mellow beer. Like this would be a good beer to pair with a cigar.
Yes, or with anything that has a caramelization on it, whether that's vegetables or like grilled meats. That I did that, done that with this at home in my own, spare time. And you're not off the mark with. There's something hard to describe. For me, it's hard to, and not just me, other friends, consumers, or other brewers to describe, what the red is in a red beer, whether it's an Irish red or this red rye lager, a red IPA. Like, what does red mean other than like the color? Also, red's a really hard color to pull off. You could get anything from like just a light dusting of red to like a deep mahogany or a garnet ruby. There's many ways to do it, and getting that color straight on, if you want like traditional red, is not easy. Yes, practice makes perfect.
Isn't it just Vienna malts? No, it's not that simple. What do I know? I mean,
Vienna's a nice layer in there. I mean, there are malts nowadays too that malted to spec really well to give off red.
Yeah.
Some of them, there's a malt called Red X out of Germany from Best. Like you could use up to 100% of the grist or the grain bill to just make red beers. I've made beers in the past with that are almost exclusively that malt. They are like a nice deep garnet ruby, and they don't give off necessarily that red note, which is like a little caramelly, a little toffee, a little nutty, kind of things you were mentioning before in varying degrees.
One thing that I'm noticing in this beer that is missing from other red beers is that a lot of red beers that I've had have a real heavy bready, like fresh bread flavor to it.
Yeah.
And this one, it's there, it's present, but it's very much in the background.
So that Red X malt out of Germany, I'm going to give a quick shout out to Mars Malt from Gambrinus, which I switched over to using for red, heaviest color and flavor profile. You can also use almost up to 100%, but I did put some more, hesitate to use the word traditional, like red malts.
Sure.
Things like Carol Red is one, or yes, you could use some Vienna for some color layering. If you use Vienna in enough of a grist, it gives off almost like a coppery marmalade color, which you can layer onto red. Or people use roasted barley, and I mean like sprinkles of it that's like uber traditional to get some kind of red notes out of it. You have to be very careful with that because you could get astringent burnt tire on it. But red beers are really fun to play with because you could get the spectrum of red, because the Irish red I have on right now, barely red. Again, with the word traditional, I try to do that one as traditional as possible. So having, like a single base malt and using just a sprinkle of roasted barley to get that color. So is it red like this bench that's
No.
sitting behind me red? No,
Probably not.
But it's just it's just a suggestion of red. And I've had Irish reds that are like red before too. There's so many ways to do it, which is again why beer is so fun. The versatility, and whether you're trying to stay to style guideline or playing outside of it, it's fun. It's fun as the person that makes it. It's also fun as the consumer. I think beer is fun. I like to say, a lot of people like in or out of the industry, at the end of the day, it's just beer.
Yep.
It's just beer.
I get where the notion and the mentality of that is. But
like some people take things very, very seriously to a point where it's not fun anymore.
Yeah.
And to that, like, do your own thing. Everyone, comes at a beverage or anything any way they want to. I don't want to yuck anyone's yum, but keep it fun too. it's supposed to also be fun. It can be serious and fun at the same time.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah. It's social lubricant.
Yes, yes, it is. And, you know, being someone that's in back of house, like there is sometimes, I don't want to call it a mystique, but I can't think of any other word, where you never see the brewer. They're just back there and they're in, they're out. They're this grumpy, curmudgeon-y person that just doesn't want to like interact with customers. I try to not be that person. Like, it's nice to come out here. There's some days I'm not here when the tap room's already open because I'm already off. I'm picking up kids from school and going home and, you know, work-life balance. And some days when I am here later, whether by choice or because I have to, and seeing people in the tap room here for whatever reason they're here, for joy, for sorrow, for, you know, reading a book, for catching up with friends, whatever it is, the reason they're in here, and they're enjoying this beer, this liquid, this, for whatever reason they want to do it. There's many ways to do it. And that's balm for me to be like, you know, on some of the harder days, I'm like, this is why they do this.
Yeah.
People come in here to enjoy the beer however they want to do it. And it's great to see people here. It's great to see people having a good time.
That was almost poetic. I love it. We got one more beer to get through here, though.
Yes. The other one, this is not a very original name for this, but it's called Lithi. It is a Lithuanian farmhouse ale. So think, I guess, in the greater family of, you know, Belgian style beers, or like the Belgian family, even though it's not Belgian. Like, think that, like, in a general like farmhouse kind of saison.
Yeah, this one always reminds me kind of like along that saison family.
Right. Some of these are really hard to explain and nail down because
Barnyard blankets.
Yeah, like farmhouse beers in the farmhouse tradition is intrinsically different, or like historically, from farmhouse to farmhouse. You either use what you got on your own land, on your own farm, or you know, trade, barter with your neighbors if they have a different crop that they're growing. Use what you have on hand.
Yeah,
and that could be similar or dissimilar from your neighbor down the road, or their neighbor. So this Lithuanian strains that have kind of come on the market in the last 5 or 10 years, they're very expressive, like Belgian strains are. You ferment them warmer. They're bombastic for a reason, and that's where they like to play.
Hold on, before we drink here, let's prost to our inaugural episode of Review, Reroll, Refill.
Indeed, it's not quite clear. It might clear up, it might not. Not worried about it at all. This isn't something that I like. This needs to be bright and clear. If it clears up, cool. If it doesn't,
it's still in style. Yeah.
Yep. This one I pulled out of a tank rip, as it were. It's not quite finished. It will be ready tomorrow. Needs a little carb on it yet, but essentially you're gonna get all the flavor and aromatic components.
Yeah. And now this has been one of my favorite beers. I have come here on a couple of events and have just sessioned this beer, like, uniquely, which is really surprising. Normally when I walk into a brewery, I don't normally order the same beer twice. I want to get that range, that spectrum. But Lithi and Pub House are the two exceptions to Lithi and Pub Ale are my two exceptions to the rule.
Yeah. So not a very inspired name. It's like, oh, Lithuanian farmhouse ale. Lithi. But it's a simple enough name, and it kind of gets the point across to people that, you know, have had the beer before. We have one super fan of this beer.
You have one super fan? Just one?
One that I know of, because he comes in fairly often. He's a regular. If it's not on tap, he'll ask, when are you bringing Lithi back?
Nice.
And I'm like, it's not something that I put on all the time. And even love to have it a couple times a year. He asks every single time, like, soon. So now I can actually tell him soon. He was in here last week, and I gave him basically the tail end of fermentation. It was warm, wasn't carb, but like, he loves the beer so much. I'm like, here, just have a nip. He's like, oh, is it coming out next week? I'm like, I'm going to try. You tell me what you get out of it. I can tell you, but then that's putting a suggestion in your mind. Like, yes, you're going to get banana and pear and a little bit of crackery, grainy, like what have you. Then,
so see,
it's front loading. I'm like, you tell me what you taste.
Cool. So let's talk about Lithi here a little bit. So again, this is not finished yet. So please note that our tasting notes,
98% over the course of today and early tomorrow, we'll have that finished and then kegged off and packaged for serving over the bar.
So when it comes to farmhouse ales and when it comes to saisons, when it comes to that family of beers, I like the term barnyard. It's my favorite term to describe a beer, and definitely I'm getting that barnyard funk out of this, or that farmhouse funk, or however you want to put it.
Yeah, but, I mean, there's our Belgian style beers, saisons, mixed culture, like, woo, It's a pretty diverse family with it.
Yeah,
here. And barnyard funk is usually more to describe things that are like use Brettanomyces or Pediococcus, things like that, which are considered, wild yeast strains or bacteria that are fun to use. They're scary in some regards and not in others. Some people are very comfortable fermenting those alongside normal things. Cross-contamination could be an issue, but if you're clean, cleanly, and sanitary enough, you can overcome that. But with these strains, some of them have what short-term for is just diastaticus, it's called. It's something that they've identified that will slowly, it'll do it quickly and then slowly just keep chewing and chewing and chewing through types of sugars, not all of them, but certain types of sugars that are left over. They'll just keep getting drier and drier. This is one of those. Like if you let it go, it'll just keep eating and eating and eating. At a certain point, by looking up the data, the fermentation curve and profile, you're like, okay, this thing's probably done. But if I didn't touch it for like 5 to 7 days, it might just eke out a little more. They're fun. They're a little tough when you use them right away. It's like, okay, is this thing done fermenting? Can I do anything with this yet? But
I would kind of want to try one over fermented. I think that would be kind of an interesting, little bit of an experiment.
I mean, this isn't the driest one I've ever done. It's dry.
Oh, it is. It is pretty dry. Yeah.
I've gotten one of these to ferment under 0. And for me, that means drier than water. So
wow.
Suck the moisture out of your mouth.
That's kind of rare to say about a beverage.
Yeah, this is I mean, beers can definitely do that. There's strains that are bred to do that on the regular. This can get close. And there are some Lithuanian strains too that will get you there pretty consistently. This one is dry. It leaves enough of a body behind too, towards isn't too thick. You can manipulate that with a lot of things during the brew day, mash temperatures and how you build your grist and onward and so forth. But the yeast in here is a big driver of a lot of things, the flavors, the body, the mouthfeel. I mean, off the top of my head, I get a little bit of a banana ester to it, a little bit of pear, a little bit of...
See, I'm not picking up the pear. I see the banana. There's also almost like a wooded fruit flavor in there that's just kind of rounding it out. But I bet once the carbonation is set in, that's going to be more masked and less prevalent.
That's another thing too. Carbonation is really fun at bringing some things out.
And hiding other things.
Right.
Yep.
And that goes along with kind of like slowly drinking your beer. You're going to get that upfront effervescence and punch of carbonation, obviously, when it comes to you right away. But as you drink it, some of it's going to come out of suspension and you might get slightly different elevated of one thing or, dumped down or back in the background of something else.
Yeah. But again, Lithi is one of my go-to beers here at 9 Mile. It's still got about a day to go, you said, and it's going to be released on which day?
Tomorrow.
So that would be March 20th. So if you guys are near Bloomington, Minnesota, highly recommend that you stop in at 9 Mile to grab yourself a pint of Lithi. It is by far one of the most sessionable beers if you are into that farmhouse Saison style of beers. I really enjoyed Lithi's take on it. It's a very approach Saison farmhouse style ale because I know a lot of people avoid it because they don't like that funkiness to it that I was talking about earlier. But I find that Lithi is a very approachable way to that style of beer. If you want to introduce somebody to that style of beer, that one and another brewery out of Stillwater used to make one that were very approachable. So highly recommend it. If you guys are ever in the Bloomington area, please swing on into 9 Mile and try Lithi. Hopefully there's still some on tap by the time this podcast hits the market.
Oh, yeah, there will be. This one doesn't fly. It doesn't drag. It's just a nice, consistent. And again, we try to have something on for everyone. So if you're a fan of anything in the Belgian culture realm, this one will scratch that itch.
Yep. That's actually an interesting question that I've been meaning to ask you for a while. And I guess I'm going to throw you under the bus and just call you out while we're on the air.
Do it.
I noticed that a lot of breweries, when they want to show their brewing chops, you see some heavy Belgian beer come out, or you see a double, a triple, quad come out. I don't see that a whole lot out of 9 Mile. Is that just not a preferred style, or is it you tend to lean more into bacteria? Now, correct me if I'm wrong on this. You're the brewer. You tend to lean more into bacteria to get to those flavors of Belgians, or
no. not here. You definitely can. There's definitely techniques and methodology for that. I did do beer, not right out of the gate, but pretty quickly after that. It was a saison that is called saison Ménage.
I remember that one. That was good too.
It was a saison that I used at the time, like a new strain on the market that was very unique. It was partially cultured by bees. I was like, cool, this right up my alley. I'm going to try this. And it is delicious. But for some reason here, and that's okay, some things just don't take. And I've done a few saisons. I've done some grisettes, which you call saison light. Some table beers, which are also in that same realm. I've done a triple. I've done enough of the Belgian things, but they just don't.
I know you do them, but like I don't see them on the menu regularly. Like
they just don't.
Dual Citizen always seems to have like one or two out there, and I never see anybody ordering them. That Belgian style beer is that feels to me like the early 2000s go-to beer for the beer nerd. That was like when in the early 2000s, back when I was like starting Beerploma, everybody had to have a Belgian to cater to that beer nerd.
And again, it also depends on where you're at, locally, regionally, or even nationally. There are some, global traditions that stick, some don't. Like, again, try to have a swath of things on for everyone. And the beginning, like year and a half or 2 years, I'm like, I'm going to really try to have absolutely everything or something close to it. So something that's English or British, something that's continental, whether it's German or not, from across the pond. A light beer, a hoppy beer, dark beer, choose your kind of variety that way, but try to have a little bit of everything. But after, 4 years, I know what people enjoy or expect more than others. And Belgians just kind of aren't that thing. So every once in a while, I'll put them on, maybe once or twice a year. I expect them to move at a certain pace, and that's okay.
Yeah, I have two friends that are really into the Belgian style beers. One of them, Chris. He's from our game group.
Yes, he does tend to bring some of the
he loves his Belgian beers.
To game night.
But outside of that, the beers that people are looking for these days, I would say like right now, the craft beer craze for us craft beer heads is focusing more on like real good traditional lagers, like pilsners, a good kölsch is always welcome. But I'm seeing those cleaner style beers where it's harder to hide flaws is kind of like what's in trend and vogue right now. I think we are hitting our time here for our inaugural episode of Review, Reroll, Refill. So I just want to shout out and thank you for all of our listeners here. We don't know the direction of this podcast quite yet, but I think we got a good feel for it today. And with that being said, don't forget to visit 9mile.com and beerploma.com to find out more information about both of our organizations as we collaborate on this podcast together. So again, if you're ever in the Bloomington area, take the trip out here to 9 Mile Brewing and be sure to visit them at 9milebrewing.com, visit them on their social media platforms, and visit us at Beerploma. You can search us up in just about every major social media platform. But John, this has been an amazing episode. I think we covered a lot of really awesome things. I'm looking forward to watching this podcast develop. Thank you so much for being indulgent in this crazy whim of mine to actually build a podcast network here for craft brewers here in Minnesota.
Oh, absolutely. I appreciate the praise and the feedback too, both, and the opportunity to do this. It's fun. It's fun to talk about beer. It's fun to talk about nerddom in whatever facet that is, because it's wide and it's expansive, and it should be. It's amazing. Whatever nerd means to you, to me, to anyone, it's great. Whether that's beer nerd, tabletop gaming nerd, TCG nerd, like whatever.
Yeah, and if any of you guys have any ideas for the show, or you want to reach out to us, or if you are interested in being a guest on this podcast show, please reach out to us at cheers@beerploma, and we'll take that under consideration. We don't know exactly what direction it's going. We just know that we have a lot of really fun stuff that we love to talk about, and John and I just love sitting and looking at each other and just talking about whatever comes to mind. That's kind of where we want to be. So with that being said, we are closing out on our very first episode of Review, Reroll, Refill. Thank you for joining us, and stay tuned for future podcast episodes.
Thanks, y'all. Have a great day.
Prost.